When I saw my name card sitting alone at a folding table next to the kitchen door, I knew my brother had made his choice. He picked his fancy new life over his own sister. What Marcus didn't know was that his little sister had grown up to become the CEO of the construction company his law firm desperately needed to survive. As servers bumped into my chair carrying trays of expensive food I'd helped pay for, I pulled out my phone and stared at the email that would destroy everything he'd worked for. One touch of the send button would teach him what it felt like to be treated like you don't matter. But would revenge against my own brother be worth losing him forever? And what if everything I believed about why he pushed me away was completely wrong? The smell hit me first: roast beef and garlic. The kind of fancy dinner that costs more per plate than most people spend on groceries in a week. But I wasn't smelling it from the main dining room where everyone else sat. I was smelling it from my folding chair next to the kitchen door. My name is Riley Chen, and I'm about to tell you how my own brother tried to erase me from the biggest day of his life. What he didn't know was that I had the power to destroy his future with a single email. The wedding reception was everything Marcus had dreamed of. 200 guests filled the grand ballroom at Grandview Manor. Crystal chandeliers hung like frozen stars above round tables covered in white silk. Red roses climbed the walls in perfect arrangements. The cake alone probably cost more than my first truck. But while everyone else sat at those beautiful tables with gold-rimmed plates and crystal glasses, I sat alone at a card table with a plastic covering. Kitchen staff bumped into my chair every few minutes as they rushed past with trays of food I'd helped pay for. I could see everything through the doorway. Uncle Bob telling his fishing stories at table 7. Cousin Jenny dancing with her twin. Boys near the band. My parents laughing with other relatives at table 3. Everyone belonged somewhere. Everyone except me. "More bread?" asked Maria, one of the servers. She looked embarrassed as she offered me the basket. Even she knew this was wrong. "Thank you," I said, taking a roll. She hurried away, probably afraid to be seen talking to the family reject for too long. I pulled out my phone and stared at the email I'd been writing all week. My finger hovered over the send button. One touch would change everything. Marcus would learn that the little sister he'd pushed aside had grown up to become someone he couldn't ignore. The sound of clinking glasses echoed from the main room. Someone was giving a speech. Probably Dad, telling everyone how proud he was of his son. I wondered if he'd mention having 2 children, or if he'd forget about me tonight too. I closed my phone and picked at my chicken. It was cold. Everything at my table was cold. This morning, I'd been so excited. I'd bought a new dress, navy blue with tiny silver beads that caught the light when I moved. I'd spent 2 hours at an expensive salon getting my hair done. I'd even practiced my speech in the mirror for weeks. But there was no speech. There was no maid of honor spot. There wasn't even a real seat at this wedding. 3 months ago, Sophia had called me crying. "Riley, I made a mistake. I asked my college roommate to be my maid of honor instead. Marcus thinks it's better this way. You understand, right?" I'd understood perfectly. Marcus was embarrassed by me. His lawyer friends wouldn't be impressed by his sister who worked in construction. His new in-laws, who owned half the businesses in town, wouldn't want to meet someone who wore steel-toed boots to work. So I went from maid of honor to regular guest. Then from regular guest to kitchen guest. Tomorrow, I'd probably become a memory he'd rather forget. But tonight, I held power he didn't know about. Through the doorway, I watched Marcus stand up with his champagne glass. He looked handsome in his black tuxedo, just like when we used to play dress-up as kids. Back then, he always included me in his games. We were best friends who shared everything. Now we shared nothing but the same last name. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. His voice carried over the microphone. Sophia and I are so grateful to have our family and friends celebrate with us. Family and friends, as if I were neither. I opened my phone again and read the email one more time. My construction company had signed a huge contract with Marcus's law firm 6 months ago. The biggest deal of my career. The project that would make both of us rich. The contract had a special clause that most people never read carefully. A clause about family problems and business conflicts. A clause that gave me the right to walk away from the project anytime, if personal relationships got complicated. Marcus had no idea his baby sister had become the CEO of the construction company his firm desperately needed. He was about to find out. Hit send and listen to the soft whoosh as the email flew through space toward his business partner's phone. Then I stood up, smoothed my dress, and walked toward the main dining room. It was time to give my own speech. I walked into that dining room like I owned the place. Because in a way, I did. The flowers, the fancy dinner, even the down payment on this venue, all paid for with money from contracts that depended on my company. But I didn't march up to the microphone. I didn't make a scene. Instead, I did something much worse. I smiled and acted like everything was perfect. "Riley!" Aunt Linda grabbed my arm as I passed her table. "There you are. I was wondering where you'd disappeared to." "Just getting some air," I said, keeping my voice light and happy. "Well, come sit with us for a minute. I want to hear all about your business." I glanced toward the head table where Marcus was cutting the cake with Sophia. He looked so happy, so completely unaware that his perfect night was about to become his worst nightmare. "I'd love to, Aunt Linda, but I should probably head home soon. Big day at work tomorrow." Her face fell. "Already? But the night is just getting started." Around us, other guests were laughing and dancing. Children ran between tables while their parents sipped wine and told stories. This was how weddings were supposed to be. Full of joy and family and love. Marcus had made sure I wasn't really part of any of it. People always said Marcus and I looked exactly alike. Same dark hair, same green eyes, same stubborn chin that stuck out when we got mad. But that's where the similarities ended. Marcus was born to shine. Even as a little kid, he could walk into any room and make friends in 5 minutes. He played quarterback in high school, won every debate competition, and dated the prettiest girls in our class. Everyone loved Marcus Chen. I was born to fade, into the background. I was shy and awkward, and more interested in building things than going to dances. While Marcus gave speeches to packed auditoriums, I preferred working with my hands in Dad's garage. But we used to be best friends anyway. When I was 7 and Marcus was 10, he taught me how to throw a perfect curveball in our backyard. When I was 12, and kids picked on me for being different, he walked me to every class for a whole month. When I was 16 and wanted to take shop class instead of cooking class, he convinced Mom and Dad to let me follow my dreams. "Riley's going to build amazing things someday," he told them over dinner. "She's got magic in her hands." That was the brother I loved. The one who believed in me when nobody else did. I started Chen Construction when I was 25. Just me, a bank loan, and a beat-up pickup truck with more rust than paint. Marcus had just graduated law school and was working at a big firm downtown. We'd meet for lunch every Wednesday at Tony's Deli and share stories about our weeks. "You're really doing it, Riley," he'd say, stealing pickles from my sandwich like always. "Building your own empire one house at a time. And you're going to rule the courtroom," I'd reply, pushing my chips toward him like I'd done since we were kids. For 5 years, we stayed close. He celebrated when I got my first big job building a new school. I cheered when he made partner at his firm. We still called each other almost every day. Then he met Sophia. Don't get me wrong, Sophia is beautiful and smart, and probably perfect for Marcus. She comes from the kind of family that has their names on buildings and gives money to hospitals. Her father owns the biggest real estate company in the state. Her mother runs charity events at the country club. At first, Sophia was nice to me. She asked about my work and said sweet things about my apartment. But I could see her trying to figure out where I fit in Marcus's new life. Construction workers don't usually go to fancy dinner parties and charity galas. The changes started slowly. Marcus began canceling our Wednesday lunches because he had important meetings. He stopped calling as often. When we did talk, he seemed distracted, like his mind was somewhere else. "I'm moving in with Sophia," he told me over coffee one morning. "Her place is closer to the office." "That's great," I said, even though I knew it meant our Sunday morning runs would probably end. They did. "We're engaged," Sophia squealed when they showed up at Mom and Dad's house with the news. The ring was huge, probably cost more than my truck. Everyone hugged and cried happy tears. I was genuinely excited for them. Marcus deserved to be happy. "Riley, you'll be my maid of honor, right?" Sophia asked, grabbing my hands. "Of course," I said, already planning the best bachelorette party ever. But as the months went by, I felt myself getting pushed further and further away. Sophia would schedule dress fittings when I was working. The bridal shower was at a country club where I felt completely out of place. The other bridesmaids were all from Sophia's world. Perfect hair, perfect clothes, perfect small talk about people I'd never heard of. "Maybe you'd be more comfortable just being a guest," Sophia suggested one day when I showed up to a planning meeting in my work clothes. "Less pressure, you know?" Marcus nodded like this made perfect sense. That's when I realized the truth. I wasn't losing a brother to marriage. I was losing him to shame. He was embarrassed by the life I'd built, the person I'd become. The little sister who could throw a curveball and build a treehouse didn't fit the image he wanted to show the world. So I said yes to being just a guest. I smiled and pretended it didn't hurt. I bought an expensive dress and got my hair done and showed up ready to celebrate. But when I saw that kitchen table with my name on it, something inside me finally broke. Marcus wanted to erase me from his perfect day? Fine. I'd erase myself from his perfect life, starting with the biggest business deal his law firm had ever signed. The day I decided to start my own construction company, I was 24 years old and living in a tiny apartment that barely fit my bed. I'd been working for Murphy & Sons Construction for 3 years, learning everything I could about the business. But every time I suggested a new idea or pointed out a better way to do something, Old Man Murphy would pat me on the head and tell me to stick to what I knew. What I knew was that I could run circles around half the guys on his crew. So I took my life savings, all $3,000 of it, and bought a used pickup truck with more rust than paint. I printed business cards on my kitchen table and called myself Chen Construction. Population: 1. My first job was building a deck for Mrs. Patterson down the street. She paid me $500 and gave me a plate of cookies. I felt like I'd won the lottery. Tweetwatwood should have seen Riley today, Marcus told Mom and Dad over dinner that Sunday. She's got her own truck and everything. My little sister, the entrepreneur. He was so proud of me then. I wish I could keep that feeling in a bottle forever. The first year was brutal. I worked 16-hour days and lived on peanut butter sandwiches. Some weeks I barely made enough to pay rent. But slowly, word started spreading around town. Riley Chen does good work. Riley Chen shows up on time. Riley Chen treats your home like it's her own. By year 2, I had to hire my first employee. I told a guy named Tommy, who'd been laid off from a bigger company. By year 3, we had a crew of 5, and were building entire houses. By year 5, we were the company everyone called when they wanted quality work done right. Marcus still bragged about me back then. My sister's company is taking over the city, he'd tell his lawyer friends. She's going to be rich before any of us. He was right, though I never showed off about it. While Marcus spent his money on expensive suits and fancy dinners, I put everything back into the company. Better tools, more workers, bigger projects. I wanted to build something that would last. The big breakthrough came 3 years ago when the city announced they were building a new civic center. It was a $50 million project, the kind of job that could make or break a construction company. Everyone wanted it. Big firms from other states sent teams of lawyers and architects to pitch their ideas. I showed up with Tommy and a folder full of pictures from our previous work. "We know this city," I told the committee. "We live here. We shop at the same stores as the people who'll use this building. We want it to be perfect because our neighbors deserve perfect." 6 months later, we got the call. Chen Construction had won the bid. The Civic Center project put us on the map. Suddenly, everyone wanted to work with the local company that had beaten the big boys. Hotels, office buildings, shopping centers. The contracts started coming faster than we could handle them. I had to make a choice: stay small and comfortable, or take a risk and grow big enough to handle all the work. I chose to grow. Within a 2 year, Chen Construction had 50 employees and 3 office locations. Within 2 years, we were one of the biggest construction companies in the state. I was 30 years old and had built something I never could have imagined when I was eating those peanut butter sandwiches in my tiny apartment. But success came with problems. The bigger we got, the more we needed lawyers, accountants, and business advisors. We needed contracts and insurance and compliance reviews. We needed the kind of professional help that Marcus's law firm specialized in. "You should use Crawford, Martinez, and Associates," Marcus suggested over one of our lunch meetings. They were getting rarer by then. "They handle all the big construction companies." "What about your firm?" I asked. "Wouldn't it be great to work together?" He laughed, but it sounded forced. "Riley, you need specialists, corporate lawyers who understand your industry. My firm does family law and personal injury cases. We're not equipped for what you need." I let it go, but something about his answer bothered me. Marcus had always been eager to help before. Now he seemed almost uncomfortable talking about my success. I hired Crawford, Martinez, and Associates, and they did good work. But I never stopped wondering why my own brother didn't want to be part of what I was building. The answer came 6 months ago when Marcus's firm called me directly. "Ms. Chen, this is Janet Holbrook from Henderson, Walsh and Kumar," the voice on the phone said. "We understand you're looking for new legal representation." I wasn't, but I listened anyway. "We'd like to propose a partnership," she continued. "Your company needs ongoing legal services, and we need reliable contractors for our real estate development projects. It could be very profitable for both of us." Henderson, Walsh and Kumar was Marcus's firm. He was calling me through his business partner because he was too proud to ask his little sister for help directly. But his firm needed Chen Construction more than I needed them. The real estate market was booming, and they had clients lined up who needed quality builders. Without us, they'd lose millions in potential business. I negotiated the contract myself. Every detail, every clause, every emergency exit strategy, including the one I was about to use. The partnership contract was sitting in my purse right now as I watched Marcus dance with his new wife. He had no idea that the biggest success of his career depended entirely on the sister he'd just humiliated. In the morning, when he checked his phone, he'd find 17 missed calls from Janet. He'd learned that Chen Construction had pulled out of every project, canceled every contract, and left Henderson, Walsh and Kumar scrambling to explain to their biggest clients why their developments wouldn't be finished. He'd discover that his perfect wedding was about to be followed by professional disaster. I smiled as I watched him spin Sophia around the dance floor. He looked so happy, so completely unaware that the little sister he'd hidden in the kitchen had just destroyed his future. Some lessons are harder to learn than others. This one was going to hurt. I stayed at the reception for another hour, watching Marcus live his last moments of happiness. He had no idea that while he was cutting cake and posing for pictures, his business partners were about to receive the worst news of their careers. The band played romantic songs. Couples danced under the sparkling lights. Children ran around tables while their parents laughed and told stories. It was exactly the kind of perfect wedding Marcus had always dreamed of. Too bad it was going to be the last perfect thing in his life for a very long time. I slipped out around 10 o'clock, before the bouquet toss and the anniversary dance. I ate, drove home through empty streets, my expensive dress rustling against the leather seats of my truck. The same truck Marcus used to tease me about. "You could afford a fancy car now, Real," he'd say. "Something that matches your success." But I liked my truck. It reminded me where I came from and what I'd built with my own hands. The call that started everything had come on a Tuesday morning 3 months before the wedding. I was reviewing blueprints for a new hotel project when my assistant Karen poked her head into my office. "Riley, your brother's online too. He says it's important." I set down my coffee and picked up the phone. Marcus and I hadn't talked in almost a month. Not since the awkward dinner where Sophia had made it clear that my work boots didn't belong in their favorite restaurant. "Hey, Marcus, what's up?" "Riley, I need to ask you something." His voice sounded strange, almost nervous. "It's about the wedding." My heart jumped. Maybe he was calling to make things right. Maybe he wanted me to be his best woman after all. Or at least move me to a table where I could see the ceremony. "Sure, what about it?" "Well, Sophia's been working on the seating chart, and we're having some space issues. The venue is smaller than we thought, and with all of Sophia's family flying in from Chicago, I waited for him to get to the point. What I'm trying to say is, we had to make some tough choices about seating. You're still invited, of course. We just had to put you at a different table than we originally planned." "Which table?" I asked, though I was starting to get a bad feeling. "It's near the kitchen. Really nice spot, actually. You'll get your food first, and you won't have to deal with all the noise from the head table." I sat in silence for a long moment, trying to process what he'd just told me. My own brother was banishing me to the reject table at his wedding. After everything we'd been through, after all the years of friendship and support, I was being treated like an unwanted relative they had to invite out of obligation. "Riley? You still there?" "Yeah, I'm here. You understand, right? It's nothing personal. Sophia's family is really important to her, and my law firm partners will be there, and you know how these things work." Actually, I didn't know how these things worked. I'd never been to a wedding where the bride and groom hid their own family members in corners like dirty secrets. "Of course," I heard myself saying. "Whatever makes Sophia happy." "Thanks, Ril. I knew you'd understand. You've always been so easygoing about stuff like this. Easygoing." That's what he thought of me. The sister who never complained, never made waves, never demanded to be treated like she mattered. "I have to go, Marcus. Work calls." "Right. Of course. See you at the wedding." He hung up, probably relieved to have gotten that uncomfortable conversation over with. but I sat at my desk for 20 minutes, staring at the phone and feeling something I'd never felt before toward my brother. Pure, burning anger. That evening, I called Karen at home. She'd been with Chen Construction since the beginning and knew our contracts better than anyone. Karen, I need you to look up the Henderson, Walsh, and Kumar file, specifically the family conflict clause. The what now? Page 47 of the original contract, Section 12B. It talks about what happens if personal relationships interfere with business operations. I heard papers rustling in the background. Karen was probably digging through her home office, which was almost as organized as her workspace. "Found it," she said. "Oh, wow, I'd forgotten about this clause. You can terminate the contract with 30 days' notice if you determine that family or personal relationships are creating conflicts of interest or compromising professional standards." What about the emergency clause? More rustling. Emergency clause. Here it is. If the conflict creates immediate ethical concerns or threatens the integrity of either company, termination can be effective immediately upon written notice. I smiled for the first time all day. When I'd negotiated that contract, I'd been thinking about potential problems down the road. Maybe Marcus would want special treatment, or maybe his partners would expect Chen Construction to cut corners because we were family. I'd never imagined I'd use it because my brother was ashamed of me. Thanks, Karen. I'll see you tomorrow. Riley, is everything okay? You sound upset. Karen had been more than an employee over the years. She'd become a friend, someone who knew me well enough to hear the hurt in my voice. My brother is getting married this weekend, I said. He's seating me in the kitchen because he doesn't want his fancy friends to know we're related. The silence on the other end lasted so long, I thought the call had dropped. That son of a... Karen caught herself. I'm sorry, Riley, that's awful. It's okay. I have a plan. What kind of plan? I looked at the Henderson, Walsh, and Kumar contract sitting on my desk. Their biggest clients were depending on Chen Construction to finish 3 major projects over the next 6 months. Without us, they'd lose millions in revenue and probably several high-profile clients. The kind that teaches people not to underestimate their little sisters. Now, driving home from Marcus's perfect wedding, I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and sadness. The email had been sent. The damage was done. By tomorrow morning, Marcus would understand exactly what it felt like to be dismissed and ignored. But winning this war meant losing my brother forever. Maybe that was a price I was willing to pay. Or maybe I'd just made the biggest mistake of my life. I need to tell you something I haven't mentioned yet. Something that makes this whole story even more complicated and painful than you might think. Henderson, Walsh, and Kumar wasn't just any law firm that happened to need construction services. They weren't random business partners who called me out of the blue. The connection went much deeper than that, and Marcus knew it from the very beginning. 6 months before Marcus called to humiliate me about the wedding seating, I'd been having coffee with Janet Holbrook, one of the senior partners, at his firm. We'd met at a Chamber of Commerce event, and she'd mentioned they were looking for reliable contractors for their growing real estate business. We represent some of the biggest property developers in the state, she'd told me. They need someone they can trust to deliver quality work on time and on budget. Your reputation is exactly what they're looking for. I was interested, but careful. Chen Construction was doing well, but partnering with a major law firm could take us to the next level. It could also create problems if things went wrong. I'd love to discuss it further, I said, but I should mention that my brother works at your firm, Marcus Chen. I want to make sure there wouldn't be any conflicts of interest. Janet's face lit up. Marcus Chen is your brother? He's one of our best associates. This is perfect. We already know your family's character and work ethic. What she didn't know was that Marcus had never mentioned me to anyone at his firm. Not once in 5 years of working there had he told his colleagues that his sister owned a successful construction company. When Janet brought up the potential partnership in their next staff meeting, Marcus must have been mortified. "You want to work with my sister?" I can imagine him asking, probably trying to keep his voice casual. "Are you sure that's a good idea?" Mixing family and business can get complicated. But Janet was excited about the deal. Chen Construction had exactly what their clients needed, and the partnership could bring in millions of dollars in new business. Marcus couldn't object without explaining why, and explaining why would mean admitting he was ashamed of his own sister, so he went along with it. He sat in on the contract negotiations, smiled when I walked into their conference room, and pretended he was thrilled about working together. "This is going to be great, Riley," he said after we'd signed the paperwork. "I'm proud of you for landing such a big deal." But I could see the tension in his shoulders, the forced quality of his smile. He was trapped between his professional success and his personal embarrassment, and he blamed me for putting him in that position. The contract was massive, the biggest deal Chen Construction had ever signed. We agreed to be the exclusive contractor for all of Henderson, Walsh, and Kumar's real estate development projects. In return, they guaranteed us steady work for the next 3 years, with options to extend even longer. Their clients included hotel chains, shopping mall developers, and luxury housing communities. Projects worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Projects that would make Chen Construction one of the most successful firms in the region. Projects that would make Marcus's little sister far wealthier than he'd ever be. I think that's when he really started pulling away from me. Every Wednesday lunch became a competition. Every family dinner turned into an awkward dance around the topic of work. Marcus couldn't stand that I'd succeeded in a world he thought he understood better than me. "Construction is such a risky business," he'd say to relatives at family gatherings. "So many companies go bankrupt when the economy changes." "Legal work is more stable," Sophia would add, squeezing his hand supportively. Marcus deals with real people and their real problems. It's more meaningful than just building things. Just building things. As if the houses where families raised their children, and the offices where people spent their careers, and the hospitals where lives were saved weren't real or meaningful. But I bit my tongue because I loved my brother. I thought if I just kept quiet and didn't make waves, things would get better between us. I was wrong. The final betrayal came 3 weeks before the wedding. Marcus called me on a Friday afternoon, his voice tight with stress. "Riley, we need to talk about the Henderson project." Henderson was their biggest client, a property developer who was building a luxury resort on the coast. The project was worth $30 million, and Chen Construction was scheduled to break ground the week after Marcus's wedding. What about it? There might be some delays. Permit issues, environmental concerns. You know how these things go. I knew how these things went, and this didn't sound right. I'd handled all the permits myself, and everything had been approved months ago. What kind of delays, Marcus? Look, the truth is, Mr. Henderson is having second thoughts about using your company. Nothing personal. He's just more comfortable working with contractors who have experience with luxury resorts. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Chen Construction had built dozens of high-end projects, including 2 resort hotels. Our experience wasn't the issue. "What's really going on, Marcus?" he sighed. And for a moment, I heard the brother I used to know, the one who couldn't lie to me even when we were kids playing hide-and-seek. "Henderson met you at the partnership announcement party last month. He wasn't impressed. He thinks you're too young, too inexperienced for a project this size. He wants to use Morrison Construction instead." Morrison Construction, the company run by Marcus's golf buddy, the one whose father owned half the city council, the one who charged twice as much and took twice as long to finish projects. And you agreed with him? Another long pause. Riley, you have to understand the position I'm in. Henderson is our biggest client. If we lose him, the firm loses millions in revenue. I can't put my career at risk for—" He stopped himself, but I knew how that sentence ended. For you, he couldn't. Put his career at risk for me. I see, I said quietly. Look, there will be other projects. This partnership is just getting started. One delayed contract isn't the end of the world, but it wasn't about the money, or even the project. It was about my own brother choosing his career over his family. It was about him deciding that I was an embarrassment he needed to manage, rather than a sister he could be proud of. That night, I sat in my home office reading every word of our contract with Henderson, Walsh, and Kumar. I studied the termination clauses, the penalty fees, the notice requirements. I wanted to understand exactly what would happen if I pulled Chen Construction out of the partnership. The answer was simple. Henderson, Walsh, and Kumar would be ruined. Without Chen Construction, they couldn't deliver on their promises to clients, like Henderson. Those clients would sue for breach of contract. Other developers would lose confidence in the firm's ability to manage large projects. Within 6 months, they'd probably lose half their business. Marcus would lose his job. His perfect wedding would be followed by professional disaster. I closed the contract and put it in my desk drawer. I wasn't ready to destroy my brother's life, even if he was determined to diminish mine. But I was ready to make him understand what loyalty was supposed to mean. I arrived at Grandview Manor at exactly 5:30 p.m., 30 minutes before the ceremony was supposed to begin. The venue was even more beautiful than I'd expected. Rolling gardens, marble fountains, and a ballroom that looked like something from a fairy tale. Marcus had spared no expense for his perfect day. I'd spent 3 hours getting ready. My hair was styled in an elegant updo that had cost more than some people's car payments. My navy dress fit perfectly, and the silver beads caught the late afternoon sunlight as I walked up the stone steps. I looked like I belonged at this wedding, even if the groom didn't think so. The first person I saw was Aunt Linda, my mother's sister who'd always been my favorite relative. She grabbed me in a tight hug and held on for what felt like minutes. Riley, oh honey, you look absolutely stunning. I'm so proud of you and everything you've accomplished. Thanks, Aunt Linda. You look beautiful too. She was wearing a purple dress that matched her silver hair, and her smile was genuine in a way that made my chest ache. This was how family was supposed to treat each other. I can't wait to catch up with you at dinner, she continued. I want to hear all about your business. Your mother tells me you're building half the city these days. I forced a smile. We'll have to see if there's time to talk. She looked confused by my response, but before she could ask what I meant, other guests started arriving. I recognized some faces from family gatherings and holiday parties, but many were strangers. Sophia's relatives, Marcus's work colleagues, people from their new social circle who'd never heard of me before tonight. I made my way to the guest book table and signed my name with a flourish. Riley Chen, sister of the groom, CEO of Chen Construction, and the person who was about to make this night unforgettable for all the wrong reasons. The ceremony was held in the garden pavilion, with white chairs arranged in perfect rows facing an arch covered in roses. I found my assigned seat in the back row, behind people I didn't recognize. From here, I could barely see Marcus standing at the altar in his black tuxedo, but I could see his nervous smile as guests filed in around me. Sophia looked like a princess walking down the aisle. Her dress probably cost more than most people's annual salary, and her father beamed with pride as he walked beside her. The whole scene was picture perfect, exactly the kind of wedding Marcus had always dreamed of having. I watched my brother's face as Sophia approached, and for a moment I remembered why I'd loved him so much growing up. He looked so happy, so completely in love, that I almost forgot why I was angry with him. Almost. The ceremony was beautiful and brief. They exchanged vows they'd written themselves, promising to love and support each other through good times and bad. Marcus's voice cracked when he talked about finding his soulmate, and Sophia cried happy tears that somehow didn't mess up her perfect makeup. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, everyone cheered and threw rose petals. I clapped, along with everyone else, genuinely happy for them despite everything that had happened between us. But as we all moved inside for the reception, I felt my resolve hardening again. This happiness, this perfect moment. Marcus had decided I didn't deserve to be part of it. Not really. Not in any way that mattered. The cocktail hour was held in the main ballroom, while the dining room was prepared for dinner. I mingled with relatives I hadn't seen in years, accepting congratulations on my business success and deflecting questions about why I wasn't in the wedding party. "I thought you'd be the maid of honor," said my cousin Jenny, looking confused. "You and Marcus were always so close." Sophia wanted her college roommate, I explained for the 10th time that evening. It made more sense. But Jenny knew me too. Well, to accept that explanation. She'd been at enough family gatherings to see how Marcus and I used to be together. She knew something wasn't right. "Are you okay, Riley? You seem different tonight." I was saved from having to answer by the sound of dinner chimes. Everyone began moving toward the dining room, where round tables were set with crystal glasses and gold-rimmed plates. I watched families and friend groups find their assigned seats, chattering excitedly about the beautiful ceremony and the delicious-looking menu. Then I saw it. Table 47, tucked in the corner near the kitchen doors, with a single place card sitting in front of a folding chair. Riley Chen. The final insult. Not only had Marcus banished me from the head table, from the wedding party, from any meaningful role in his special day, he'd literally seated me with the catering staff. Servers brushed past my chair carrying trays of appetizers. I could hear the dishwasher running in the kitchen behind me. I sat down and looked around the room. At the head table, Marcus and Sophia were laughing with their wedding party. At table 2, my parents were deep in conversation with Sophia's parents about vacation homes and investment portfolios. At table 5, Marcus's law firm colleagues were probably discussing their latest cases and biggest victories. Everyone belonged somewhere. Everyone except me. That's when I pulled out my phone and opened the email I'd prepared that morning. The one I'd been too conflicted to send, too hurt to hold back, too angry to ignore any longer. The subject line read, "Immediate termination of services. Chen Construction, Henderson Walsh Kumar Partnership." My finger hovered over the send button as servers placed salads at every table but mine. My food would come last, after everyone else had been served, because even the catering staff knew I didn't really belong here. I thought about all the Wednesday lunches Marcus and I used to share, all the times he'd bragged about his successful little sister, all the promises he'd made about us being partners in life, even if we worked in different fields. I thought about the phone call where he'd told me I wasn't good enough for his clients' resort project, about the months of feeling pushed aside and diminished, about sitting in this corner like a family embarrassment he couldn't quite bring himself to disinvite. I thought about tomorrow morning, when Marcus would wake up in his honeymoon suite and check his phone to find 17 missed calls from his business partners. When he'd learned that Chen Construction had pulled out of every project, canceled every contract, and left Henderson, Walsh, and Kumar scrambling to explain to their biggest clients why none of their developments would be completed on schedule. I thought about the lawsuits that would follow, the reputation damage, the career destruction that would make this beautiful wedding reception the last truly happy moment Marcus would have for a very long time. My thumb moved toward the send button, but then I heard something that made me freeze, Marcus's voice, coming through the microphone at the head table. He was standing up to give his groom's speech, the traditional thank you to all the guests who'd made the evening special. Before we start eating this incredible meal, he began, his voice carrying clearly across the room, I want to take a moment to thank some very important people. I lowered my phone and listened despite myself. First, to Sophia's parents, thank you for raising the most amazing woman I've ever met, and for welcoming me into your family with open arms. Applause from the crowd. Sophia's parents beamed with pride. 2. My own parents. Thank you for always believing in me and supporting my dreams, even when they seemed impossible. More applause. Mom and Dad looked like they might cry with happiness. To our wedding party. Thank you for standing with us today and for being such incredible friends. I waited for him to mention me. Surely he'd say something about his sister, about family, about the people who'd loved him long before he became successful enough to deserve this fairy tale wedding, but he didn't. Marcus thanked the venue staff, the photographers, the florist, even the string quartet that had played during cocktail hour. He thanked everyone except the sister sitting alone in the corner, the one who'd helped build the success that he paid for this perfect night. That's when I hit send. The email whooshed away into cyberspace, carrying with it the destruction of everything Marcus had worked for. But as I watched him continue his speech, oblivious to what I'd just done, I felt something unexpected. Not satisfaction, not revenge, just emptiness. The rest of dinner passed in a blur. I picked at my cold chicken while watching Marcus and Sophia cut their cake, share their first dance, and bask in the congratulations of 200 guests who genuinely loved them. Every few minutes, I'd check my phone to see if Janet Holbrook had responded to my termination email yet. Nothing. She was probably at her own family dinner, or maybe at a movie with her husband, completely unaware that her law firm's biggest partnership had just imploded. The realization wouldn't hit until Monday morning when she got to the office and found my email waiting in her inbox, alongside frantic messages from 3 major clients whose projects had just been derailed. I should have felt powerful. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt sick. Around 10 o'clock, as the band started playing dance music and the older guests began heading home, I decided it was time to leave. I'd done what I came to do. There was no point in staying to watch Marcus enjoy the last few hours of blissful ignorance before his world fell apart. I was gathering my purse when I heard footsteps behind me. "Riley! Where are you going?" I turned to find Marcus walking toward me, his bow tie undone and his shirt sleeves rolled up. He looked relaxed and happy, more carefree than I'd seen him in months. "Home," I said simply. "It's been a long day. But the party's just getting started. Sophia's about to throw the bouquet, and then we're doing the anniversary dance. You can't leave now." I looked at my brother, my married brother, and felt a stab of regret so sharp it took my breath away. In a few days, when the consequences of my email became clear, he would never look at me with this easy affection again. We'd go from siblings to enemies in the time it took his business to collapse. "Congratulations, Marcus," I said, and I meant it. "Sophia's perfect for you. I hope you'll be really happy together." He smiled, and for a moment he looked like the 10-year-old boy who used to teach me card tricks in our treehouse. "Thanks, Ril. That means a lot coming from you." I started to walk away, but his voice stopped me. "Hey, I'm sorry about the seating thing. I know it's not ideal, but with Sophia's family and my work people, we just ran out of room at the good tables. You understand, right?" I turned back to face him, and something in my expression must have changed, because his smile faltered. "Do I understand?" I repeated slowly. "Do I understand that my own brother was so embarrassed by me that he hid me in the kitchen like a dirty secret? Riley, that's not... Do I understand that you didn't want your fancy friends to know that your successful CEO's sister was related to you?" Marcus looked around nervously, probably worried that other guests might overhear us. "Keep your voice down," he said. "This isn't the time or place for this conversation." "When is the time, Marcus? When is it ever the right time for you to acknowledge that I exist? You're being dramatic. It's just a seating chart." "It's not just a seating chart." The words came out louder than I'd intended, and a few nearby guests turned to look at us. "It's 3 months of being pushed out of this wedding. It's years of being treated like an embarrassment. It's you choosing your image over your family every single time." Marcus's face flushed red. "Riley, you need to calm down. You're ruining..." "I'm ruining what? Your perfect night? The night where you pretended you didn't have a sister who loved you enough to build a company that could make you rich?" That stopped him cold. "What are you talking about?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You don't even know, do you? You have no idea how much money your law firm makes from my contracts. You've been collecting bonuses for months from the partnership you were embarrassed to be part of. The Henderson account isn't that big a deal, not just Henderson, all of it. Every real estate client your firm has signed in the past 6 months came to you because of Chen Construction's reputation. Every luxury development, every commercial project, every million-dollar contract. They all wanted to work with your firm because they knew we'd be the contractors." Marcus stared at me, and I could see him putting the pieces together. The sudden influx of high-paying clients, the talk around the office about the firm's record-breaking year, the partnership bonus he'd used to help pay for this wedding. "You're saying that my success, that the firm's success, depends on me, the sister you were too ashamed to seat at a decent table." We stood there in silence for a moment, the weight of the truth settling between us. In the background, I could hear the band playing a slow song and couples moving onto the dance floor. "Riley, I had no idea. If I'd known, you would have what? Treated me like family instead of like a burden? Actually been proud of what I'd accomplished instead of trying to hide it from your friends? I am proud of you." "No, you're not. You're proud of my money when it benefits you, but you're ashamed of me as a person. You're ashamed of my work clothes and my truck, and the fact that I'd rather build things than go to country club dinners." Marcus ran his hands through his hair, messing up the perfect styling Sophia had probably spent an hour on that morning. "That's not true. I wanted tonight to be perfect. Sophia's family has certain expectations, and my colleagues have a certain image of what your family should be like. And I don't fit that image." He didn't deny it, which hurt worse than if he'd argued with me. "I'm sorry," he said finally. "I'm sorry about the seating, and I'm sorry if I made you feel unwelcome. That wasn't my intention." "Your intention was to pretend I didn't exist. Mission accomplished." I turned to leave again, but this time he grabbed my arm. "Don't go. Not like this. We can fix this, Riley. We can work things out. I looked down at his hand on my arm, then back up at his face. My brother, who used to be my best friend, who I'd loved more than anyone in the world, who had chosen his reputation over our relationship. It's too late for that, Marcus. What do you mean? I pulled out my phone and showed him the sent email. His eyes widened as he read the subject line. Riley, what did you do? I ended our business partnership, effective immediately. Chen Construction will no longer be working with Henderson, Walsh & Kumar on any projects. The color drained from his face. You can't do that. We have contracts, legal obligations, all of which include family conflict clauses that I wrote into every agreement. Clauses that allow me to terminate immediately if personal relationships interfere with professional standards. Riley, please. You don't understand what this will do to the firm, to my career. I looked at my brother, seeing him clearly for the first time in years. Not the successful lawyer in the expensive tuxedo, not the perfect groom with the fairy tale wedding, but the man who had chosen his image over his family. I understand perfectly, I said. Tomorrow morning, you'll understand what it feels like to be treated like you don't matter. I walked away, leaving him standing alone in the corner of his reception, finally understanding the consequences of his choices. The last thing I heard as I pushed through the ballroom doors was the sound of laughter and music, the celebration continuing without us. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in my bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of the confrontation with Marcus, every word of our argument, every look of shock and betrayal on his face when he realized what I'd done. Around 3 in the morning, my phone started buzzing. Text messages from Marcus. Riley, please call me. We need to talk about this. I know you're angry, but destroying my career won't fix anything. Please don't do this to our family. I turned my phone face down and tried to ignore it, but the messages kept coming. By sunrise, there were 17 of them, each one more desperate than the last. At 7 a.m., I finally got up and made coffee. My house felt too quiet, too empty. I kept expecting the phone to ring or someone to knock on the door, but the world outside seemed completely normal. Birds were singing in my backyard. My neighbor was walking his dog. The newspaper was sitting on my front step like it was any other Sunday morning. But it wasn't any other Sunday morning. It was the morning after I'd potentially destroyed my brother's career and my own company's biggest partnership. I was halfway through my second cup of coffee when my phone rang. Janet Holbrook's name appeared on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. I called back immediately. This time I answered. Riley, thank God. I just got your email. Please tell me this is some kind of mistake. Janet's voice was tight with panic, and I could hear other voices in the background. She was probably at the office, on a Sunday morning, dealing with the crisis I'd created. It's not a mistake, Janet. Chen Construction is terminating our partnership with your firm. But why? Everything was going so well. Your work has been exceptional, and our clients love you. What happened? I'd been dreading this question all night. How do you explain that you nuked a multi-million-dollar business relationship because your brother seated you at the wrong table? There have been some complications with the family dynamics, I said carefully. It's become clear that mixing business with personal relationships isn't working out. Family dynamics? Riley, I don't understand. Marcus has been nothing but professional in all our dealings. He's actually been your biggest advocate here at the firm. That stopped me cold. What do you mean? He's constantly bragging about Chen Construction. Just last week, he was telling the partners about your Civic Center project and how you'd won 3 industry awards this year. He talks about you all the time. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. He talks about me? Of course. He's so proud of you. He always says his sister is going to be more successful than any of us lawyers could ever dream of being. The coffee cup slipped from my hands and shattered on the kitchen floor. Coffee and ceramic spread across the tiles, but I barely noticed. Janet, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Of course. The Henderson project. The luxury resort. Marcus told me the client wanted to use a different contractor because they weren't impressed with my experience. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Riley, I don't know where you got that information, but it's completely wrong. Mr. Henderson specifically requested Chen Construction for the project. He said he'd heard about your work from 3 other developers and wouldn't consider anyone else. The room started spinning. I sat down hard on one of my kitchen chairs. But Marcus said, Marcus fought for you on that project. Henderson's timeline was incredibly tight, and some of the other partners suggested we use Morrison Construction because they have a bigger crew. Marcus spent 2 hours in a conference room explaining why Chen Construction was the better choice, why your attention to detail and quality control made you worth the wait. I couldn't breathe. I don't understand. Riley, what's really going on? This termination is going to hurt both our companies. We have 3 major projects starting this week, and our clients are depending on you. If you pull out now, we're all going to lose millions of dollars. I hung up the phone and sat in my kitchen surrounded by broken coffee cup pieces, trying to process what Janet had just told me. Marcus had been bragging about me to his colleagues. He'd fought for my company to get the Henderson contract. He was proud of my success, not embarrassed by it. So why had he lied to me about the project delays? Why had he seated me in the kitchen at his wedding? Why had he spent months making me feel like an unwanted burden? My phone buzzed with another text message. This one wasn't from Marcus. It was from Sophia. Riley, Marcus told me what happened last night. Can we please talk? There are things you don't understand about the wedding planning. Please don't let this destroy your relationship with your brother. I stared at the message, my mind racing. What things didn't I understand? What was I missing? Before I could second-guess myself, I typed back, I'm listening. My phone rang 30 seconds later. Riley, thank you for answering. Sophia's voice was hoarse, like she'd been crying. I know you're angry, and you have every right to be. The retied seating arrangement was inexcusable. Then why did you do it? Because I'm an idiot who let my mother control too much of the wedding planning. That wasn't the answer I'd been expecting. What do you mean? My mother has very specific ideas about how things should be done. She's old-fashioned and judgmental, and she made some horrible comments about you after she met you at the engagement party. I remembered that party. I'd come straight from a job site and was still wearing my work clothes. Sophia's mother had looked at me like I was something she'd scraped off her shoe. She said you didn't fit the image she wanted for our wedding. She threatened to boycott the whole thing if I didn't minimize your presence. And you listened to her? Sophia started crying. I'm so sorry, Riley. I was weak and scared, and I let her bully me into treating you terribly. Marcus fought me on it for weeks. He wanted you to be his best woman, but I kept making excuses about tradition and family expectations. My heart felt like it was breaking and healing at the same time. Marcus wanted me to be his best woman. He wanted you in the wedding party, at the head table, giving a speech, everything. But I kept pushing back because I was terrified of what my mother would do. And Marcus chose to protect me instead of fighting harder for you. I closed my eyes and tried to process this new information. Marcus hadn't been ashamed of me. He'd been caught between his sister and his new wife, trying to keep everyone happy and failing miserably. Riley, please don't destroy his career because of my mistakes. He loves you so much, and he's been beating himself up about the wedding planning for months. I looked at my phone, at the termination email that had already been sent, at the business relationship I'd destroyed in a moment of hurt and anger. Sophia, I think I may have made a terrible mistake. I spent the rest of Sunday morning sitting in my kitchen, staring at my phone and trying to figure out how to undo the damage I'd caused. Every few minutes, I'd pick up the phone to call Janet back, then put it down again. What could I say? Sorry, I destroyed our partnership because I misunderstood my family drama. Around noon, there was a knock at my front door. I opened it to find Marcus standing on my porch, still wearing his tuxedo pants and dress shirt from the night before. His hair was messy, his eyes were red, and he looked like he hadn't slept any more than I had. "We need to talk," he said. I stepped aside to let him in. He walked into my living room and collapsed onto my couch, like all the energy had drained out of him. "Sophia told me what she said to you," he began. "About her mother, about the wedding planning, about all of it." I sat down in the chair across from him. "Marcus, let me finish, please. I need to say this." He took a deep breath. "You were right last night. About everything. I did choose my image over our family. I did let you get pushed aside and treated like you didn't matter. And I've been lying to myself about why." I waited for him to continue. "The truth is, I've been jealous of you for years, Riley. Jealous and intimidated and too proud to admit it." That was the last thing I'd expected him to say. "Jealous? Of me? You built something incredible from nothing. You took a risk and followed your dreams and made them come true. You're respected in your industry. You're successful on your own terms. And you did it all without compromising who you are." He ran his hands through his hair, messing it up even more. "Meanwhile, I went to law school because it was the safe choice. I joined a big firm because it was prestigious. I spent 5 years doing what other people expected of me, instead of figuring out what I actually wanted. Marcus, you're a great lawyer. You help people. I shuffle papers and bill hours and pretend to care about cases that bore me to death. You build hospitals and schools and homes where families make memories. Your work matters in a way that mine never will." I stared at my brother, seeing vulnerability I'd never noticed before. When you started getting successful, really successful, it forced me to look at my own life and realize how unhappy I was. And instead of dealing with that, I started resenting you for it. You resented me. I resented that you were braver than me. I resented that you'd figured out how to be happy when I was just going through the motions. I resented that our parents bragged about you at family dinners while I sat there feeling like a fraud. He looked up at me with tears in his eyes. And I resented that you were still the same person you'd always been, genuine and kind and unpretentious, while I was turning into someone I didn't recognize. Someone who cared more about appearances than relationships. I felt my own eyes filling with tears. Why didn't you tell me any of this? Because I was embarrassed. Because admitting I was jealous of my little sister felt pathetic. Because it was easier to push you away than to deal with my own problems. We sat in silence for a moment, both of us crying for different reasons. "The Henderson Project," I said finally. "You didn't really try to take it away from me, did you?" He shook his head. "I fought harder for that contract than I've ever fought for anything. When Henderson's people suggested using Morrison instead, I spent hours convincing them that Chen Construction was the only company that could deliver the quality they wanted. Then why did you tell me he wasn't impressed? Marcus looked ashamed. Because I panicked. The wedding was getting closer, and I could see how hurt you were about being pushed out of the planning. I knew if you showed up to the wedding angry, there might be a confrontation with Sophia's family. Her mother had already made it clear she thought you were inappropriate for the event. So you made up a story about losing the contract? I thought if you were focused on being angry about work, you might not make a scene about the wedding. I thought I could smooth everything over after the honeymoon, and you'd never have to know about Sophia's mother's demands. I stared at him in disbelief. You thought lying to me and hurting my feelings about my career was better than standing up to your mother-in-law? I thought it was temporary. I thought I could protect everyone's feelings and fix everything later. He laughed bitterly. I was an idiot. Yes, you were. Riley, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know I've been a terrible brother and an even worse business partner. But please don't destroy your company because of my mistakes. I looked at Marcus, really looked at him, and saw not the successful lawyer or the perfect groom, but the scared 10-year-old boy who used to hide in our treehouse when our parents fought. The brother who taught me to throw a curveball and convinced me I could build anything I dreamed of. I already sent the termination email, Marcus. It's done. His face crumpled. I know. Janet called me this morning. She's trying to figure out how to explain to the clients that all their projects are on hold indefinitely. How bad is it? Bad. Henderson is threatening to sue for breach of contract. The hotel chain is looking for new legal representation. 3 other developers are reconsidering their agreements with the firm. He looked up at me. I'll probably lose my job by the end of the week. I felt a stab of guilt so sharp it took my breath away. Marcus, I'm so sorry. I was angry and hurt, and I wanted you to understand how it felt to be dismissed and ignored. I never meant for... You meant for me to face consequences for my actions. And you were right. He stood up from the couch. I should go. Sophia's waiting for me at the hotel. We're supposed to fly to Hawaii tomorrow for our honeymoon, but I'll probably need to cancel it to deal with the fallout from this. He walked toward the door, then stopped and turned back to me. For what it's worth, Riley, I want you to know that I've never been more proud to be your brother than I was when I walked into that conference room and told them why Chen Construction was the best in the business. I meant every word I said about your work, about your character, about the incredible things you've accomplished. Marcus, wait. He paused with his hand on the doorknob. What if I told you there might be a way to fix this? Hope flickered in his eyes. What do you mean? I thought about the termination clause in our contract, about the 72-hour grace period for reconsidering emergency decisions, about the possibility of undoing the mistake I'd made in anger. What if the family conflict that caused me to terminate, the partnership got resolved? What if we found a way to make this work? You'd do that? After everything I put you through? I looked at my brother, at the man who'd been my best friend and my biggest supporter before he became my biggest disappointment. He'd made terrible choices, but he'd also just shown me more honesty and vulnerability than I'd seen from him in years. On one condition, I said, anything. Next family dinner, you're wearing your work clothes and I'm wearing mine. No more pretending we're anything other than what we are. Marcus smiled for the first time since he'd arrived. Deal. And, Marcus? Yeah? Next time you have a problem with me, you talk to me about it. No more lies, no more managing my feelings, no more protecting me from uncomfortable truths. We're adults. We can handle honesty. I promise. I picked up my phone and started dialing Janet's number. What are you doing? calling your business partner to tell her that the Chen family has resolved their differences and Chen Construction is ready to get back to work. Janet answered on the first ring. Riley, please tell. Me, you're calling with good news. I'm calling to invoke the 72-hour reconsideration clause in our contract, I said, watching Marcus's face transform with relief. The family conflict that prompted the termination has been resolved through direct communication and mutual understanding. Oh, thank God. I've been fielding angry calls from clients all morning. Can you hold on a second? I heard muffled voices in the background as Janet presumably shared the news with her emergency damage control team. Okay, I'm back. Riley, I need to ask, are you sure about this? I don't want to rebuild our partnership only to have it fall apart again the next time there's a family disagreement. I looked at Marcus, who was sitting on the edge of my couch looking like he was afraid to breathe. Janet, I can guarantee you that there won't be any more family disagreements affecting our business relationship. My brother and I have established some new ground rules for how we communicate, and we're committed to keeping personal and professional issues separate. And Marcus, are you comfortable with continuing the partnership? Marcus grabbed the phone from my hand. Janet, I'm more than comfortable with it. Riley's company is the best thing that ever happened to our firm. And I've been an idiot for not making that clear from the beginning. From now on, Chen Construction has my full support and advocacy. All right then, I'll call our clients and let them know we're back on track. Riley, can you be in the office tomorrow morning at 8 to discuss the timeline adjustments we'll need to make? I'll be there, I said. After I hung up, Marcus and I sat in my living room smiling at each other like we had when we were kids and had just gotten away with something we probably shouldn't have done. I can't believe you saved my career, he said. I can't believe I almost destroyed it in the first place. We're both idiots. Speak for yourself. I'm a successful businesswoman who makes excellent decisions. Marcus laughed, and it was the first genuine laugh I'd heard from him in months. Right. Is that why you almost nuked a multi-million-dollar partnership over a seating chart? Hey, it wasn't just the seating chart. It was months of feeling like you were ashamed of me. His smile faded. Riley, I need you to know that I have never, not for 1 second, been ashamed of you. Intimidated by you? Absolutely. Jealous of you? Definitely. But ashamed? Never. Then why did it feel like you were pulling away from me? Because I was pulling away from everyone. I was so unhappy with my own life that I couldn't stand being around people who had figured out how to be happy. It wasn't about you. It was about me being a coward who was too scared to admit I'd made the wrong choices. I studied my brother's face. Are you really that unhappy as a lawyer? I was, but things might be different now. What do you mean? Marcus smiled. Janet offered me a position heading up the firm's new construction law division. Apparently, our partnership with Chen Construction has opened up so many opportunities that they need someone to focus exclusively on real estate and development law. And you want to do that? I want to work on projects that matter. I want to help people build things instead of just arguing about who owns what after it's already built. And I want to work closely with my brilliant sister, who's going to teach me everything I need to know about the construction industry. I felt tears starting again, but this time they were happy tears. Does this mean we can have our Wednesday lunches again? If you can stand having lunch with someone who almost ruined both our careers because he was too proud to have an honest conversation, I think I can manage that. We hugged then, really hugged, for the first time in months. It felt like coming home. I should get back to Sophia, Marcus said eventually. She's been worried sick about both of us. Tell her I'd like to have lunch with her this week. Just the two of us. I think we need to talk about how to handle her mother's expectations going forward. You'd do that? Marcus, she's your wife. That makes her my sister-in-law. We're family now, whether her mother likes it or not. Marcus grinned. You know what? I think Sophia's going to like having a sister who doesn't take crap from anyone. She's going to need one if she's married to you. Hey, after Marcus left, I sat in my living room thinking about everything that had happened in the past 24 hours. I'd almost destroyed my career and my relationship with my brother because I'd been too hurt and angry to ask the right questions. I'd made assumptions about his motivations without trying to understand his perspective. But I'd also learned something important. Sometimes the people we love make terrible choices, not because they don't care about us, but because they're struggling with their own problems and don't know how to ask for help. Marcus had been drowning in his own insecurities and jealousy, and instead of reaching out, he'd pushed away the person who could have helped him the most. I'd been so focused on my own hurt feelings that I hadn't seen his pain. We were both guilty of choosing pride over communication, image over honesty, assumptions over conversation, but we'd also proven that it's never too late to choose differently. Mine. Phone buzzed with a text message from Sophia. Thank you for giving us another chance. I promise I'll do better. I texted back, we all will. And for the first time in months, I believed it was true. The next morning, I put on my best work clothes, clean jeans, steel-toed boots, and a Chen Construction polo shirt, and drove to Henderson, Walsh and Kumar for our 8 o'clock meeting. When I walked into that conference room where I'd first signed our partnership agreement, Marcus was already there waiting for me. He was wearing a suit, but he'd loosened his tie and rolled up his sleeves. It was the most relaxed I'd seen him look in a professional setting in years. Ready to get back to work? He asked. Ready, I said. And we did. We got back to work. Back to being siblings. Back to building something together that was bigger and better than either of us could create, alone. The wedding might have been Sophia's perfect day, but this felt like the real celebration. The day we chose family over pride, honesty over image, and love over everything else. That's the end of Riley and Marcus's story. A reminder that sometimes the people we love most are fighting battles we know nothing about. Family isn't perfect, but it's worth fighting for when we choose honesty over pride. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment and tell me your city or country. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to help us spread more kindness through storytelling. Your support means everything and helps these stories reach people who might really need to hear them. There's another incredible story waiting for you right on your screen. Click it now, and let's continue this journey together. Thanks for listening, and remember, it's never too late to choose love over pride.